Hey everybody, this is episode 5 of the Latent Force Prepared Defensive Action podcast. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the subtle but important differences between trespassing, burglary, and robbery. So stick around.
Mission 3, 2, 1. This is the Latent Force Prepared Defensive Action podcast.
We believe there's no defensive situation so bad that your lack of training can't make it worse. We're on a mission to cut the crap in the firearms industry and bring you topics and discussions that are designed to make you a more informed and effective gunfighter. If it has to do with alcohol, tobacco, firearms, and everything else, we're going to talk about it. Guys, gals, and submarine racers, here are your hosts, Jay Eisenecke and Mike Garza.
All right, everybody, welcome to episode 5 of the Latent Force Prepared Defensive Action podcast. I'm your host with the most, Jay Eisenecke, and my other host with the moremost is my good buddy Mike Garza. How are you, Mike? What's going on?
Can you say moremost? I mean, so I'm Mexican and I'm trying to learn English and you're messing me all up. Like, I don't understand how I'm supposed to learn.
You can say whatever you want. You can say it however, the mostest, the more with the mostest. I don't know, whatever you want to say. Whatever you want to say.
I don't know. Everything's illegal nowadays, so who knows?
Yeah, and I hear that you're going to be locked down. Your new governor came up with some new laws there that are new rules. It says you're going to be locked down.
Yeah, Mr. Ducci said that we were not allowed to go out past 8 o'clock. We don't know how to behave ourselves. Incidentally, it's only the law-abiding citizens that don't know how to behave themselves. Everyone else, you know, they seem to not care. But the law-abiding people, we got to stay in, dang it.
Yeah, well, that's too bad. That's just craziness out there. But you know, it's hopefully they get that stuff figured out. I'm not seeing any of that over here, but it's only a matter of time. But hey, it's on a good note though, not to go too much down the miserable side. But did you watch the this morning? Did you get up early and did you watch the docking of the Dragon capsule with the International Space Station this morning?
Is the correct answer yes? I was kind of recovering a little bit from maybe 1 or 2 drinks last night.
Oh, that's right. So you were celebrating the launch the day before, and so your exuberance and partying. Yes,
okay. Absolutely. That's exactly what it was.
So that is an acceptable answer. That's
people in space.
Yes, it's a very acceptable answer. So being kind of the space nut geek, whatever you want to call it, ever since I was a little kid, you know, I was really interested in watching all that stuff. But I thought it was really funny that they had, I don't say funny, but you know, they got like 5,000 steps just to, you know, flip a switch and open a door. And I thought it was just interesting to watch this morning that, you know, they were hooked up and it took 2.5 hours for him to open the door just to walk in.
But I don't think you're allowed to open a door in space. That's not the way it works.
Well, the screen door, you have to keep that one closed. That's like rule number 1 of the spacecraft academy is you always keep the screen door closed.
Well, don't you have a gold visor and everything that you have to keep down? I don't know. I don't know the rules of space.
I don't know.
Mexicans never got out that far.
Well, you know, it's called the International Space Station for a reason. So, ambitions, and you know, someday, right? So,
maybe.
The day that I'm expecting you to be part of Space Force anyways. So
yes. Well, there's no weight requirement, so I'm good to go.
Perfect. Yeah, that's what I told my wife. I said, hey, I wanted to be a pilot, but they couldn't wedge me into the cockpit of one of those planes. Dude,
it's going to be so nice. I get to wear stretchy pants and everything, and I'll be good to go.
What, in Space Force?
Yeah,
is that what
of course. Yeah, because
is that their uniforms?
Yeah, stretchy pants.
So like pajamas.
Yeah, like people will go to Walmart and they just wear pajamas. That will be Space Force uniform.
Man, Space Force onesie. That'd be all right, man. That'd be all right. Anyway, have like little. Anyway, well, you couldn't. You'd have to have like Velcro on the bottom of the feet so you could stick to the walls of the spaceship. That would be it. So,
especially when you're going to the bathroom.
Yeah, well, you got to have the the backdoor flap thing, whatever. Yeah.
Well, if we don't hurry, though, China is going to beat us to the moon and start mining it. That's what I've heard.
Well, we'll see. I know they got a lot of plans up there, but
China.
We'll see what happens. I think it's 2024. We're supposed to be on the moon. I think is the next step. So we'll see.
Not too far.
And then Mars. And I know that's when you're going to be all excited.
I want to be a Martian. I think that would be super cool.
Okay. All right.
Just like that guy. What was his name? He went to Mars.
Marvin?
And he got stranded there. No,
Marvin?
some guy. He got stranded there and he had to make crops out of poop.
Oh yeah. The Matt Damon. That was like his third trip to Mars. It's like get a clue, man. It's like the third time somebody has left you on Mars. He should just not play a guy in space. This is all I got to say. Well, hey, this is episode 5, and it's kind of a reboot. Maybe people have been listening before, and I guess I shouldn't say it's a reboot, but there was like a long time between 4 and 5, so things were busy, and so maybe just a thing to get kind of a focus of where we're going, and is we're still going to stick to our ideas of the Prepared Defensive Action podcast and talk about firearms training and self-defense and being a prepared citizen who carries a gun, those type of things. But I think part of it is we want to talk about some of the stuff that we like to talk about, which is going to be alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, and even explosives. I don't know that, we get to blow stuff up too often, but, anyways. So if it's related to any of those things, we're going to talk about it pretty much. Does that seem fair going forward?
That seems pretty fair going forward.
Okay. Cause I know we've got a couple on tap for talking about, some good cigars and, also talking about, whiskey and things. So maybe even some coffee. I mean, everybody should be on the edge of their seat. But hey, getting back to the things at hand, we can sit here and talk. I'd like to use, what was it? Hans Gruber in Die Hard. I'd love to talk men's fashion all day, but I'm afraid business must intrude. So we aren't going to talk about the key codes to the safe, but we will talk about things that have to do with firearms. And so you and I talked a little bit about this story. Our lives now we live in video chats, whether it's Zoom or Cisco meetings or Skype or whatever it is. Everybody is having meetings because of the coronavirus and social distancing and everything else. And so we don't see the things on how it intrudes on people's lives. And so this article was interesting. I thought was something worthwhile to talk about for a few minutes anyways. Had to do with a toy gun in a school-related Zoom call. And this absolutely just blows my mind that we're even having a conversation like this. But apparently, this was somewhere, and this is a result of this action actually happened end of May. So it's pretty recent that the story comes out. So as we're all sitting and doing these calls, we're not paying attention to what's in our background. I know that, some of us you're on the Death Star right now, and I've got guns in the background here. So, but some people don't have the deal in the background, and you can see everything that's in your house and sitting on the table. And so this comes from somewhere in America. I don't know if I know exactly where it was. It was in Cumberland Valley School District. So that sounds like something in Texas, if I'm not mistaken. But somebody can fact check me on this later. But anyways, so there was a 7-year-old first grader who was attending a Zoom class, and he was with his classmates and his teacher, and they were doing everything. And he was seated at the table doing all of his classroom stuff. And next to him on the table happened to be, gasp. What was it?
A a plastic red. It wasn't even a actual looking like a fire, like a gun. You know, it wasn't like an airsoft gun. It wasn't like a green gun or black gun with a red tip. It was like literally some stupid red plastic something or other.
And it was, now the picture they showed, and I don't know, I'm going with the picture that they showed here, is that this was one of those rock'em sock'em robot things. It was like a gun that have an extended, like a boxing glove at the end of it. You pull the trigger and it extends out like it punches something in the face. This was the gun that scared, apparently, the dickens out of somebody. So shortly after this here is after it concluded, the parents apparently got a call or an email, I guess it was technically, from the teacher, and that apparently another child's parent had contacted them that they were upset and were disturbed, which it gets better, about them having a gun during one of these classroom things. I mean, can you believe that stuff?
Imagine that, somebody upset in today's world.
I don't even get. So then it gets better, right? Not only did they get an email, but shortly after that, within 2 hours of the conclusion of this class, the parents get a police officer from the Hampton Township Police Department came to their house and asked them to come outside so he could question them about this complaint involving a child and a gun. Now it just continues to get better. Here's the funny thing about this is that the parents aren't even gun owners. They don't have actual firearms in their house. So, any rate, so they try to go through this whole thing, and they even show them this gun, and I'm air quoting here because we're not actually a video, but whatever. So, anyways, air quote gun. They show it to them and say, "Hey, look, guys, this is what it is, and we don't even have any actual firearms in our house, and we don't even get it." So, it just cracks me up. I can't believe it. It says so. Apparently, that the officers understood about what the kind of gun it was. But he said, we understand, we just had to follow through. So they got a complaint from some parent who apparently was all upset. They took it very seriously, as if there was some sort of chance that we had a weapon in the home. So they were pretty scared about it. So apparently the parents were so nervous and scared about seeing a gun. Now, this is the thing that interests me. When they go to a movie, do they have to wear Depends? And I say that because they see guns in the movies, and if they're so nervous about it, it made them so uncomfortable that I would imagine if they go see a movie where they have guns, they might wet themselves.
Now, here, let me play devil's advocate. Oh, maybe they don't go to the movies because they don't want to see guns. But at the same time, if they're watching TV and there's commercials of movies with guns in them, do they just go around their house wearing Depends all of the time?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm literally speechless. I don't understand where America is going to. What are we going to do when this virus is a prime example? Oh, if you don't wear, like, I've seen people shaming other people because they're not wearing a mask. I'm like,
yeah, I know.
Are you kidding me? What is wrong with people? And again, do we even really call this a gun? It's a little toy that has a punching glove to it. So if you see Mike Tyson, are you going to wet your pants? I'm like, I don't understand. I really can't. I cannot process this material.
Well, and obviously all this came to be because another parent claimed to feel uncomfortable over the sight of a completely harmless object, because it isn't a gun, it's just an object or a toy in the privacy of someone else's house, realizes that it's in their home. I mean, you weren't there, you weren't anywhere near it. It was just seeing it. Now you get to see into somebody else's house, and because it's in their house, you're uncomfortable, and now the police can come to your house. It just blows me away, is that we live in a world where we have all these people that are just nosy, always want to know what's going on. What do they call people?
Busybodies.
Busybodies. Thank you.
Or
very
Karens.
much.
Take your pick.
Karen. Yeah. So apparently it was Karen who called, and it should begin to concern people, and that you got to actually look around. You know, and we look at funny stuff is because I have watched some of these videos. I don't know if you've watched some of the funny ones that come up, like the dude that's in a Zoom meeting, he stands up and he's in his boxer shorts. Yeah, he's like walking around his house, and everybody in the meeting's just laughing, and he doesn't even know that he's, you know, whatever. And then the other guy's doing it, and the kids come in on come through the door in their little bouncy cart thing, and then his like nannies crawling on the floor trying to pull the thing back inside the door. I mean, it's funny stuff happens, but you got to pay attention to now, because people are looking around and behind you in your video to see what it is that you have to try to, I don't know. It's just,
So I can't tell you, or I don't want to tell you where I work, but I had my boss, he was on a Zoom meeting, and it was a national telecon, and he has a bearskin rug because he used to live in Alaska, and he's a big hunter, you know. So he had his bearskin rug that he loves hanging up on his wall, and he actually got an email from the top dog, and it was like, hey, for the next meeting, can you please take that down?
That's crazy.
He complied, which I would have been like, I'll tell you where you can comply that, you know. I'm like, and this is the part that pisses me off. This is the part where I'm anti-cop and pro-cop all wrapped up in one. Dude, if you're a cop and you have to respond to that call, I would be like, you know what, Sergeant? I'm not taking that. You take it, because this is idiotic. How in the world am I supposed to respond to a toy gun in someone's home upset someone else over a Zoom call? Get out of here. First of all, I would have been like, let me see your warrant. Otherwise, go pound sand somewhere else. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, is they obviously had some rights there that they could have, you know, said, hey,
they waived them, you know.
Yeah, they obviously did. But here's one of the interesting things is, so I'm sorry to all those people in Texas. I shouldn't have said it sounded like it was from Texas, because I was wrong. It's actually
got to be California. Oh, Pennsylvania, even worse.
So, sorry to all the folks out there in Pennsylvania, and especially the people in Texas who I just said it sounded like Texas.
That's it. We're going to be banned from Texas now.
Man. So anyway, here's one line that I think is probably the most telling about the whole thing, is that this is an example of one Pennsylvania family shows how radical intolerance towards others' private choices can have damaging effects on children who are too young to understand the culture wars being waged by politically motivated adults. So the kid had nothing to do with it. He had no idea. He had no intent. He had nothing except for it was a toy gun sitting on his deal on the table while he was doing class, being a good student, paying attention. He wasn't being disruptive. He didn't even handle it at all during the Zoom call. It was just sitting there. Yeah. And so now he's got to go through all this stuff with his parents because some, 10-ply mother named Karen, felt uncomfortable because she saw it sitting there. So it's just frustrating. So, but I think it's telling, because we have to think about all the stuff that's out there, is people just do stuff like that. And you have to think, you just got to be protecting yourself all the way around. It doesn't even matter. So anywho, howdy. So one of the things, I thought was probably a pretty good time, because you were telling me about this earlier, and I think we've done enough concealed carry permit classes that I think this is probably one of the best topics to talk about, and especially with the situation in the world that's happening right now. You're on a lockdown at 8:00 and all that kind of stuff, and people looting and all that kind of stuff. I thought this would be a good time to really get into a discussion, maybe for a little bit, about trespassing versus burglary versus robbery. And I think that we find these three categories overwhelmingly in every class. This is where people's eyes are opened to how responsible you have to be a gun owner, and what you can and can't do. Because I think people take this huge step that they hear, stand my ground, castle doctrine, whatever it might be in your state. And they think that means that they're justified to, in any situation, to just shoot somebody as soon as they're on your property. Right.
Yeah, this is, and even right now too, like with all this stuff going on, with all the protests, Same thing. Everyone's always like, "Oh, just shoot them." Like, okay, you can't just shoot people. It doesn't matter whether you're pissed off because they're in your way on the highway, or you just can't go around shooting people. I know that we would like to shoot some of them, but that's just one thing that we cannot do. And especially if it's over property. Come on, let's be serious for a second. It's over an inanimate object. What is wrong with you if you're thinking that that's okay? And yes, I understand Texas has that long-standing law, but that was back in the day from cattle, where cattlemen, that's their livelihood. Like, you didn't have your cattle because somebody stole them, then you would just you couldn't live off the land and the meat and that would sell from the market. So that's where that law stands for. Not from stealing my 55-inch TV where I can't do without it, which, for the record, we should all turn off our TVs and just go out and about and mingle in society and learn how to become social again.
Sure. Well, and I guess we have to do the legal thing, right? Is that even though you and I may play attorneys, very powerful, well-dressed, well-groomed attorneys on television.
Wealthy. Don't forget
yes.
wealthy.
Even though we're not attorneys, and we're not giving you legal advice at all. And this is the advice that I'm going to give you before we go down this discussion a little bit, is that if you are going to carry a gun, if you're going to be a CCW person who carries a permit, is I think the best $200, maybe $300, depending on the attorney that you get, is to find an attorney that is specialized in Second Amendment law, and spend 60 minutes, 90 minutes, whatever it might be, have all of your questions written down, and spend that time with that attorney to get the answers about your state, about what you can and cannot do. That's where you need to get your legal advice from, is from an attorney. Yes, you can read statutes and get a pretty good understanding, but there's still some spirit of the law and those type of things that you have to have a good grasp and understanding. So make sure that you take that time and get with somebody to get some answers to that. So we're just going to go over 35,000 feet, the difference between these things, because we obviously, things are very different in every state, and it could be different in every city. So we want to make sure that we're just kind of talking about it in a broad sense. So trespassing, first of all, a good definition of trespassing would be intentionally entering or remaining on someone else's property without their explicit authorization. Right? Now, Mike, if a call came out for somebody trespassing, came over the radio,
I would shoot him. Oh, sorry.
Comes out over the radio and it's a call for service. Is anybody going to respond to that call going code, i.e. lights and sirens?
No.
Because
again, it's the situational dependent, right? Like, again, are you trespassing on a nuclear power plant? Or are you trespassing in a park that's closed after curfew? Again, right? So, and right. Again, we can't stress this enough. It depends on where you're at, what city, what state. I mean, all of that.
But again, it comes down to is that the police are not going to be responding to these things. They're not coming all guns blazing. They're not sending SWAT to a trespassing call. Most of the time, it's some guy who's at the Dairy Queen and he's had one too many bottles of Crown Royal and he won't leave. And they want to get rid of him because he's, I don't know, he's being belligerent. He's thrown up on the tile. I don't know what he's doing there, but he won't leave and they want to get rid of him. Right. And
how did you know I was at the Dairy Queen last night?
I guess as soon as I said Dairy Queen and Crown Royal, one too many bottles of Crown Royal, everybody should have known it was you. So that turns into, right, is that they get there and somebody has shown up, is there. They're remaining, won't leave on somebody else's property, either personal property, a business, something like that. And without their authorization, they're there. So that's going to be handled, right? They're just going to send somebody out. They're going to come in. And then where you see this all the time is it goes from the person then takes it to the next level. They get belligerent with the police. They start fighting with the police. Then it's taser. And the next thing, the guy's, face down in his own vomit on the tile, getting hooked up and then thrown in the back of a car.
Doing the herky jerky.
Right. But but in most of the time, it's simply going to be, you need to leave. And that's it. And it isn't going to be anything any more serious than that. They're going to come in and talk to you. They say, hey, let's step outside. Let's get your side of the story, whatever it might be. Well, I understand you wanted to be here and all those type of things. And maybe they didn't give you the right change, or they didn't give you the hamburger or whatever, but you just need to leave. And we're going to let you know is that they've trespassed you from the property, which means you can't come back. And if you do come back, you're going to be arrested.
Right.
So leave.
And that's exactly what people need to understand. The second that the person that has the right to be there, whether it's an employee, a manager, the owner of the property, whoever's in charge, as soon as they say, hey, your presence is no longer welcomed here, that's it. At that current point in time, if you're not leaving, you are actively trespassing. That's the way the law reads.
Right, and then that becomes criminal, right? Is because there is intent. Is you can wander onto somebody's property, not knowing, and be somewhere without the intent to be trespassing to do anything, and that's just trespassing. But as soon as there is intent for you to be there, where you define somebody saying we don't want you here and you won't leave, that's where it just changes to a different. Where some places they might call that criminal trespass. Right. Versus just trespassing, right?
Right. Well, for a good example was a gentleman that was apprehended allegedly or shot by the ex-cop and his son. He allegedly, there's video of him going into a house that was under construction, looking around, right? Whether it wasn't gated or anything, so he just went in, he looked around, and then he left, and then allegedly now he's robbing the place, right?
Right.
Which is completely not the case.
Well, we're going to get into that whole Ahmaud Arbery conversation, because the interesting thing about it, which is something that I learned about that recently, is that he was actually studying to be an electrician. And so he was in there, and so you can see why he would be in there checking out that construction site. Even though in the video you saw he wasn't doing anything, he wasn't touching anything, he was just looking around. Is that if a guy is studying to be an electrician, that type of stuff would interest him. So you could see why he would be in there checking that stuff out. And that might, obviously to me that says, hey, that would be the reason that the guy's there. But we're definitely going to spend some time, because I think that that's a good future episode, is to talk about that one, because I think it kind of dovetails into what we're talking about here, because there's a lot of stuff that went south on that, even though it was in Georgia and everything goes south very quickly there, because it's south, it's humidity.
Yeah, it's the humidity that really sets you off.
Yeah. That one just infuriated me, that whole story. And I definitely want to spend some time talking about. But one of the things, again, with the trespassing is understanding, if somebody, we've talked about this one that happened in Arcadia in Arizona. I know we've used this as an example a couple of times. The teenagers went out and they got partied and got a little inebriated, and the kids were bringing their friend home, and they dropped him off in front of the wrong house, and they all look about the same. And the kid wandered in the backyard, came through the French doors in the back, and passed out on the couch in the house. Not his house at all. So he had no intent of being there. Obviously, he was trespassing, but it raises a question is, so then people say, well, hey, if they're in my house, I'm just going to shoot them. Okay, so let's look at this from a trespassing standpoint, and where it is that doesn't give you justification at this point just because a guy is in your house. Just because he's there. He's just in the wrong house. Didn't know any better, right?
As much as it pisses you off that this person is in your house, that you forgot to lock the French doors, FYI. Yeah, that, again, this is exactly what we were just talking about, right? You just can't go around shooting people. Yeah. Again, we might want to, but it's a kid, for the love of Christ, Yeah,
and I mean, and I don't, it's funny, because the threshold to me, and I have this discussion a lot, is that the threshold to me to where you are going to have to use deadly force should be that threshold should be, obviously it's for everybody and everybody's threshold is a little different. But for me, it's going to be, a lot of stuff has got to happen. A lot of triggers have got to happen. A lot of things before I'm going to go directly to deadly force. It's just the way it's going to be for me. And if you've ever had to, I know Mike, you have, and I have, is having to draw your gun, on duty in the situations that you're in there, is that the level it has to go to get your finger on the trigger. I mean, I don't know. It's just a huge thing that you have to think about and be prepared for when that happens. And, you just can't go out shooting people, especially for trespass.
Yeah. And I'll double down on that. I mean, I'd probably easily pulled my gun, I don't know, 50 times and pointed it at someone. And out of those 50 times, only 2 times did my finger come onto the trigger and pull slack out, So the entire time I'm judging the situation. And then luckily the person finally said, okay, this guy's serious and I'm going to back down. So again, it just goes to show you that most reasonable people, when they get a firearm pointed at them, they're going to do what you're telling them to do.
Yeah. And having a gun drawn and having it on and pointed towards another human being it's not the same as, obviously it's not the same as paper targets and those type of things. And so, yeah, it's, like you said, there's a lot going through your mind and thinking about, and they have to do a lot of things, and I remember one specifically was a stolen vehicle, and the guy gets out of the car and will not listen to instructions, whether it was a communication issue or not, but will not listen to instructions, won't keep his hands away from his waistband. It's in the middle of the night. It's just a lot of things could have gone wrong. And, when you sit there and you go, and that's a situation where what does it take for it go from finger straight along the frame to finger on the trigger to where you're going to press that? And, just because a guy's in a stolen vehicle doesn't mean he gets out, doesn't mean you just get to shoot the guy. I mean, there's a lot of thing that goes into it. But anyway, so one of the next things then is burglary. So burglary is an interesting one when we compare it to robbery. So Mike, we can go into, I'll go into some definitions here. Burglary, entry into a building illegally with intent. There's the key word, intent to commit a crime, especially theft. So what's kind of some of the stuff when we talk about that? So what is burglary then?
Yeah, so now, you take back that kid that's sitting on the couch. He wakes up in the morning. He's like, oh, wow, I didn't intend to be here. However, now that I'm here, I really like this 55-inch TV, or let's take an Xbox, for example. I really like this Xbox. I know it's not mine. I'm going to steal this. I'm taking it. There's nobody here, no one to watch me, no one to see me. I'm going to steal this.
Right. And so the question then, in most places, you are not allowed to defend property with deadly force.
Correct.
I'm pretty sure that that's the same in most states. I'm sure the threshold in order to use deadly force is similar, maybe more extreme in some places, but I would say things that would be common is that you're not going to be able to defend property with deadly force. It just doesn't make any sense. So if the guy's taking your TV and walking out the door, you can't just shoot the guy because he has your TV. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, and I think this all stems back to I've heard phrases, well, I'm sure he's not a productive, citizen of society, so what do we care if we get rid, if we thin the gene pool and stuff like that. Again, I get it. I see your your rationale, but at the same time, that is somebody's kid. That's somebody that has a moment in lapse of judgment, which, trust me, I have been there when I was 15 to 17, 19. I was not a sweetheart. I was doing bad things. I was stealing things. That was my, I wanted to see what I could get away with from the dumb cops, and trust me, I'm sure I've paid for it tenfold in karma in today's world. So again, is that what you really want to do? You want to teach a lesson to this person and possibly kill them, by shooting them? It's not really smart.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, and a lot of this is that, again, you can't think about it. It's just the person has done nothing except for taking property. And so using deadly force to do that is obviously the threshold is that you have to, at some point, this is really, burglary is a property crime. I mean, that's the basic of it, is that it's a crime against property. It's not a crime against a person. Yes, you own the property. So ultimately, at the end of the day, it's against you. But the target of it was not you. The target was the property to take it. And so anywhere you're going to go, you're never going to have the right to use deadly force to do that. And especially if that person never threatened you. I mean, if you just come into your house, they grab a TV and they see you and you go, hey, and then they take off running out the door, right? There wasn't anything where they were going to attack you, come after you. You didn't fear for your life, except for you weren't expecting to see somebody in your house. But that's not the justification, right?
Yeah, this for me, this is a division in my ethos, I guess. So I'm a constitutionalist, and if you're not obstructing my pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness, I don't care. I don't care what you do. I don't care if you own a tank. I don't care if you own a nuclear missile, as long as you're not impeding on those three things, right? But okay, then you look at it, whether taking your property, your TV. Well, I sometimes, every now and then, find happiness in that by watching YouTube videos of people doing dumb things. So, like, where do you draw the line? Well, that's where right now you get into civil law, where now I'm going to sue this person for the damages of my TV because they stole it and it's gone now and they've hawked it for some meth or who knows what it is they're doing. So this all boils back down to whether their person is really a productive citizen of society. Again, you're taking someone's life. You're using deadly force or up to deadly force to as punishment. Basically, you're like, well, I'm going to punish this person. That's really, I think that's what it boils down to, is this person has got the gall to come into my house and take something, and I'm going to punish them. I think that's really what it boils down to when people say that kind of stuff.
Sure. And so here's a perfect example, right? Is if a person picks a lock or breaks a window to enter a house with the intention to steal jewelry or money, that is a burglary, right? And so I checked up here while you're talking. I get on the quick fingers here. According to the U.S. Bureau of Justice, 4 types of burglary are completed burglary, forcible entry, unlawful entry without force, and then attempted forcible entry. So, those degrees of burglary range from misdemeanor to felony in certain degrees. So you just have to think about those type of things, and is where burglary is and how it applies, and whether or not that's a justification for you to start going directly hopping to deadly force, for sure. So, what then to you is going to be when we say burglary versus robbery? So then we talked about burglary a little bit. So what is it to you when we say, hey, this is now turned into a robbery?
Sure. So, okay, let's take our drunk kid now who's stolen the Xbox. You happen to walk in, or your wife, and now he sees a purse there, and he goes, well, now I want that purse because I know that purse has money or credit cards in it. So now you've actively become into robbery. You're robbing someone.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, again, we emphasize the difference is that burglary involves a person illegally entering a building in order to commit a crime while they're inside. And then robbery is generally when someone takes something of value directly from another person by the use of force or fear. So the difference is that now I was just coming in to break into your house to take your TV. Now I see that you have a nice purse and you have some nice jewelry and you have a cell phone, an iPhone, because people are robbing people for iPhones. I don't think they're robbing people for Samsung Galaxies, but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Back in the day, it was for Jordan sneakers.
Yeah, right. So now it turns into, now they are either by force or fear. So they're either going to, come up and they're going to smack you upside the head. They're going to beat you over the head. They're going to, do whatever it is that they're going to assault you in an aggravated way, or they're going to brandish a firearm, a knife, whatever, and threaten that they're going to do that to you. And so those things then changes to where now, depending on whether they have all those things, that force continuum, right, is whether they have the opportunity, the ability, all those things to then attack you. Is it they're bigger than you? You're smaller than them. You know that they're, tweakers, or they're out of their mind on meth or coke or everything. And they're strung out, and now they're they have no care about anything, and they're going to attack you. All those things that you have to worry about then turns into that robbery, is where it turns into, am I going to defend myself against that? Right. And that's really where the CCW thing kind of comes into play.
Right. And FYI, if the criminal is dumb enough to use a finger gun underneath a sweater, guess what? No get out of jail ticket free. I mean, they're going down just as hard as if they would have brandished a gun.
Right. Yeah. And it doesn't matter. It's either by force or by fear. And if you believe, I mean, it would be the worst thing is that somebody reacts to the fact that you use the finger gun in your jacket pocket, and they believe that to be a firearm. And that's what you base your fear. They're close enough to you, and they had the intent and the ability to do it, and they had a gun, and you feared for your life. I mean, it would be a tragic situation for sure. So, with robbery being a crime where they take something of value directly from you, that's taking money or property directly from someone without permission, with the intent to keep the property permanently, through the use of force or intimidation. So those are kind of some of the things that fall into what a robbery is, which is, a big difference between burglary and robbery.
I concur.
You concur. Well, see, if you concur, then everything, obviously, now the world is right. All the planets have aligned. Everything is, oh, goodness.
As long as we can definitely say that Pluto is still a planet.
Yes. Yeah. Well, they'll soon tell us when they're out there at Mars. I think Neil deGrasse Tyson I don't know, maybe it was him that downgraded Pluto to just a moon or something like that.
I don't think he can do that.
It was him.
I think it was the whole community decided that it was just a rock now, not a planet.
Maybe he just brought it up. I don't know. Guy's got a lot of stroke, man. He could have. He could have just gone out there and waved his thing and said, "Hey, it's no longer a planet."
I don't Neil think we can say that. Way. Is that PC? I don't know.
I don't know. Well, I mean, obviously, shaking his thing in front of somebody isn't very PC, but there's a really good book that I've been reading for him from Neil deGrasse Tyson, which is talking about how the military and space exploration are clearly tied together. Technology and astrophysics are how they're tied together. So the advances, in order to learn more about space and the things that are out there and the forces that are there, it takes a lot of money and revenue and research. And the places that, obviously, the high ground is important to the military. So obviously space is a hugely important place to have a tactical advantage, is from that there isn't any higher ground. So in order to get into space and be able to operate in space, they spend a lot of time in research, and they hire the best minds to be able to figure out how to work up there. So the advances that we see in astrophysics come from the fact that we want to advance ourselves in the military. And it's interesting because he's a left-wing dude. I mean, it's no surprise. I mean, and he seems like a nice enough guy. But and I guess that's kind of the point of this podcast, is that I think we come from the point of being reasonable, is that, you can be left or right and you can still be wrong. And, you can still have a conversation with people without having to go, crazy. And I think that if we look at stuff from being a reasonable person, we find that there's a lot of interesting stuff that's out there that we can learn. So anyways, that was one of the cool things. It's a good book. I'll link it up in the show notes so everybody can, check that book out. But I enjoyed reading that one for sure. So
yeah. And if you guys don't have an idea, when we say Karen, so just recently that lady in New York, right, with a dog.
Oh yeah.
Have you seen that video? Okay, that is a Karen. Completely, and it's not a race thing. She just completely blew it out of the norm and just went over the top. I mean, the fact that she included the race card is even better. Maybe that's a super Karen. I don't know. But we'd probably have to come up with a new name. I don't know, like a Tiffany. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I think that's what they actually called her was Central Park Karen or whatever.
They totally called her Karen.
And then of course she does the thing that just irritates me the most. And then of course, she's a liberal. And so the first thing she does is because the guy that was there that said something to her about the dog being off a leash. So apparently this part of Central Park is like I don't know if it's like a protected thing or something. I guess a bunch of bird watchers go there or whatever. And so that part of the park, you can't have your dog off the leash. And so this guy who was there is a part of the Audubon Society or something like that. He's a big time bird watcher. Apparently he's written a book or something about him. And he's like a professor at Stanford or something like that. I don't know. The guy's a super smart dude. And
he carries around Scooby snacks in his pocket.
Yeah, exactly. Because he tried to get the dog so he would get it. She would get it on a leash. So he tried to give it a snack. And so he's out there doing his thing, looking at the birds, and he's, politely that's the way it sounds to me, is he politely says, hey, you need to put your dog on a leash. And of course, she's not going to do it because she's Karen. And sorry to all the Karens out there. But, so Karen's like, no, you're not going to do it. And so he's trying to give the dog a treat so the dog will come to him so he can put a leash on it. And she's like, don't touch my dog, and freaking out. So she calls the police. And of course, does the worst thing, but doesn't surprise me, is start saying that this black guy is threatening her. And she does that for no other reason except for figuring that she's going to get a quicker response because this black guy that she says is, threatening her. And, it's just, anyway.
The only thing that could have made that better was if she would have said, I'm a white woman.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah, that would have been even better.
We would have had way more riots.
So I think that they lit her up and she lost her job because she was like that's what it was. She worked for one of these big investment firms. So she was rich, hedge fund manager or some crap like that. And so she lost her job because they want to know part of it. So
it's New York. But that's the thing is I don't expect anything different from New York. That's just, I'm sorry, New York, I've labeled you. You call me insensitive. You call me a dirty Mexican. It doesn't matter. That when I see New Yorkers, I picture that. And again, at the same time, I'm going to play devil's advocate. This Stanford professor and all that stuff, hey, he didn't have to do any of that. He could have just said, hey, can you just put your dog on a leash, and then walked away. He didn't have to try and get the dog to come over and Scooby snack him. I get it. I totally get it from his perspective, but at the same time, dude, really? I mean, I don't know. I think it was just, the whole thing is stupid. She's stupid. She's probably the more stupid of the two, and he's just as dumb for engaging in that kind of craziness.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess that's the part of it, right? Is that you look at it and say, who is anybody right in the whole thing? And, I don't know. Sometimes it's just not worth getting into arguments with people. And, and
it's not like it was a vicious attack dog. I mean, the stupid poodle didn't know which way was up or down. I mean, give me a break.
Yeah. And it's just kind of like, hey, do you want to have this confrontation? And hey, he said something. And I think that that's important that people still do that, is you should say something. But then on top of that is that you don't want to say something and then this thing escalate out of control. And I mean, I'm the type of person, I don't know if this is a funny thing. You have to check this out. It's called cart narcs. And it's I think the guy either has a Facebook page or a YouTube channel, and it's called Cart Narcs. And the guy goes around in the parking lots where people have their carts, and he goes around and he calls everybody out that doesn't put their cart in the cart corral. And that's like a pet peeve of mine. Always has been. I park close to him so I don't have to go very far when I'm done, but put this stuff away. And so he goes up there and he'll approach people and he'll just be like, "Hey, do you know your cart goes in the cart corral? It's right over there. I mean, it's like 5 feet away. Dude, seriously, you couldn't just carry the cart, push it over there? Here, let me help you. Let me show you where it goes." And he just calls people out. And, obviously people get kind of crappy with him and they start saying stuff, but still eventually they put their cart in a cart corral because somebody called them out and doing something stupid. So
but why do I have to put my cart back?
It's just,
what's the reason for it?
It's common courtesy. So your cart
no.
flying around.
Common courtesy for the cart guy to come and get it at one location. That's why he gets paid to go pick up the carts from all over the parking lot.
No.
Now, what I've heard is so that cars don't get dented.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Common courtesy is that your cart doesn't. You just set it over here. The wind comes.
So what if I put my cart, the front tires, on the rocks so that it doesn't move?
Sure, you could.
I want to find this cart guy. Me and him are going to have words.
You could, and I mean, so I just think it's not that big of a deal. And I guess that's what it gets down to, right? Is that I think that's just the reasonable thing is you get a cart, just put it over in the freaking thing. And okay, if you're going to go put it up on the curb so it doesn't fly away and doesn't, run into somebody else's car. I just think that, there's plenty of times where those things get windy and stuff runs down across the parking lot and puts a big dent in somebody's car.
Well, yeah, when you're in class 4 hurricane winds, I mean, but come on, they're not going to come off of the rocks.
Well, yeah, they're not going to come off the rocks, but I'm just saying if you just stick it over there next to the car and you drive off and it has free wheel across the parking lot. I've seen them pick up some speed just on the slanted parking lots.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I don't leave my carts. If I can find the stupid cart thing, I put it back. But if they're a mile away, you're getting the rocks cart treatment. That's it.
Okay. Well, I'm just telling you, it's called a cart corral, and you better start using it. Okay, because I'm gonna be an honorary member of Cart Narcs just because. But anyways, I mean, I've seen a cart go across the parking lot and just take out a little lady from Pasadena. It was pretty rough. I mean, just knocked her down.
You got to go some way. It's just the way it is.
Man, I tell you.
Sometimes you just get taken out by a cart. That's just the way it is.
Yeah. I don't know. I honestly, Mike, I have no clue how we got here.
This is like that YouTube surfing. You're in the middle of the night and you just start clicking on channels, and before you know it, you're watching a peanut butter jelly sandwich eat a pear, and you're like, how did I get here?
I have no clue how we got to Cart Narcs from what we were talking about, how it went from burglary and robbery to how we went across the world to Cart Narcs. I don't get it, but that's okay. I think that's what makes it fun is, whatever, we can talk about whatever we want. So that's what we did. Well, anything that we missed, do you think, in your opinion, on the whole thing with trespassing versus burglary versus robbery?
No, I think the reason for these is that we get a lot of questions in CCW. Like, the biggest question I always get is, when can I shoot someone? And then I'm like, my response is like, why would you want to shoot someone? Like, do you want the thrill of it? Do you want to protect your life? Do you want to protect your loved ones? It's not for me to decide for you. You should understand the ramifications and what's going to happen next, that there is no other way out, right? It should be up to someone else to decide for you whether you're going to be cleared in a court of law. That's not the way your brain should be working, right?
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, it does. It's that thing is that each individual person, nobody can tell you when you're supposed to fear for your life to the point that you think that you should, use deadly force to protect yourself or your family or your loved ones or someone else. It is, I hate to throw that term out there, but it's true, is it is situationally dependent. There's a lot of things that go into it, all the things that are there that have to be in place in order for you to make that determination. But just because, and I guess, so it comes down to is that the one thing that I can tell you is that just because somebody is trespassing, that is not going to be one of those things that's going to carry you to the point that you need to use deadly force. And a burglary, although can be forcible and all those type of things, it still is not going to carry you to the point of in my opinion, and, legally more than likely to where, you can use deadly force. But a robbery where somebody starts then threatening you, either intimidating you or actually using force against you to separate you from your property. I mean, that's a whole different situation. And then it's going to be your understanding of the situation, what all is happening. But I just thought it was important that we talk about it, because I know it comes up, and we're in weird times right now, and all the looting and all this kind of stuff going on. And I just think it's important for people to let's clear our minds. Let's get a good understanding, because we just don't want to see people make bad choices. And, especially that'll affect their lives and their families' lives, for the rest of it. And then also for the person on the other side. So just something to think about. But I think other than that, anything that you got, Mike, that you want to add?
No, I think we beat the bush out of that one. So
did what?
Beat the bush out of that?
I've never heard
Beat
that.
It out of the bushes? I don't know. Again, I'm Mexican. That's how I claim my ignorance.
I think we, what is it? A dead horse. Yeah.
Dead horse. Yeah. We beat the dead horse. I like that.
Yes, exactly. Okay. We'll use that one. Okay, everybody. Well, hey, thanks for joining us for this episode, and we will catch you on the next one.
And that'll be a wrap for this episode of the Leighton Forest Prepared Defensive Action Podcast. Be sure to give us a follow on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, or visit our website, www.leightonforest.com, so you can get all the latest info from Leighton Forest. If you have any comments or questions on this episode, or if you have a suggestion for a future show, you can reach us by shooting an email to podcast@leightonforest.com. On behalf of Mike Garza and myself, thank you for joining us. Be safe, and as always, stay in the fight.
Peace out.